Hello, dear students. My name is Ruchi Sanger, and this lesson is for Class 11 English Core from the NCERT textbook Hornbill. This is part 1 of Chapter 3, titled Discovering Tooth, the Saga Continues. The objective, dear students, is to familiarize you with a little bit of information about the writer, some things about setting, a little bit of background information, and some sequential details of King Tut's lineage, reign, and death. Before we begin, I request you all to keep your textbooks open to page 24. That's right, page 24. Very good. Can you see a map on that page? Good. That map is going to guide us in part through the lesson. Let's begin. At the onset, let's understand why A.R. Williams or Anne Williams wrote this feature. Well, she was a specialist in writing about archaeology for the National Geographic. This chapter is the 6th piece from their 207th volume. Okay? It's a non-fiction piece of writing. But before you get disinterested, the interesting part is that it's connected to an intriguing story. Look at the map on page 24. You can locate Egypt in the map of Africa on the bottom left. The river Nile is clearly marked for you as it runs across Egypt. The other maps show details which we'd keep referring to through the course of this lesson. It was here in Egypt in 1386 BC, that far back, can you imagine, centuries ago, that the golden age of the 18th dynasty began. Why? Because the ruler, Amenhotep III, ruled wisely and for almost 40 years, right up to 1349 BC. After his death came his son Amenhotep IV. He ruled for 17 years, up to 1333 BC. Unlike his father, his reign was tumultuous and, as some historians say, quite a wacky period. I'm sure you're wondering why that was the case. Well, it was because of what he did. You see, his dynasty used to worship god Amun, but Amenhotep IV destroyed all of Amun's temples, his images, his idols. Can you imagine the impact on the people? He didn't stop there. He promoted the worship of another god called Aten instead of Amun. To symbolize this, he did two major things. First, he changed his own name from Amenhotep to Akhenaten to show his devotion to god Aten. You get it? Akhenaten for god Aten. And second, look at the map, please. Can you see Thebes there? That's right. Thebes was the religious capital earlier. So he moved it to Akhenaten or Amara. I hope you can spot that on the map there. It's further north to Thebes. I'm sure you can spot it. Great! Akhenaten's son was born in 1343 BC, and he named him after god Aten too. He called him Tutankhaten. Akhenaten IV died in 1333 BC, but strangely, it wasn't his son that took the throne after him. It was a ruler called Smenkhara who ascended but ruled briefly for a year or maybe even less. The name Smenkhare, right? Tutankhaten was just 9 years old when he took the throne in 1334 BC. You must be wondering what his reign was like. Well, surprisingly, it was rather prosperous. So, whoever was advising the little pharaoh, that's the word for the Egyptian king, pharaoh, whoever was advising the little pharaoh did a wonderful job. When Tutankhaten was barely in his teens, he did something that became confusing for his people. Can you guess what it could have been? No, he didn't break temples, but you're right, he reversed his father's religious god, Aten, back to his dynasty's original god, Amun. He also changed his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun as a respect to God Amun. Tutankhamun, God Amun. His rule was fairly prosperous economically. Strangely, in 1325 BC, after 9 years of his rule, Tutankhamun died. The pharaoh was barely 18 or 19 years old. Well, there were several mysteries surrounding his death. His tomb came to be discovered in 1922, much later. But when he died, Tutankhamun was buried after being mummified in the Valley of the Gods. He was put in a coffin of solid gold. People say it weighed 110 kgs. Can you imagine? 110 kgs of solid gold. It also had a death mask having Tut's facial features on it. Tutankhamun's tomb included the regular several items like gold jewelry, along with articles of everyday use like clothing, wine, board games, perfumes, etc. Why, you might wonder? Well, because Egyptians believed that there is afterlife, and in the afterlife they wanted their pharaoh not to lack in things of use. So they used to bury these regular use things along with items of luxury and riches in the tomb itself. So he was buried in the Valley of the Kings, like I had said, and if you look at the map on page 24, you can spot it. When he died, though, Tutankhamun's death resulted in the gradual downfall of his dynasty. In 1922, like I said, when his tomb was discovered, archaeologists were tempted to solve this mystery. How did he die? Why did he die? Was he murdered? Was it some natural cause? Several mysteries. So the first person who discovered the mummy of Tutankhamun was a British archaeologist called Howard Carter, and it is because of this very thing that the chapter is titled Discovering Tut. And there are other things that follow the discovery, which is why they say that the saga continues. So the chapter is rightly titled Discovering Tut, the saga continues. And this happened even after centuries, approximately more than 3,300 years after he was buried. This is the saga that we'll talk about in part 2. My advice till then, that it might be a good idea to catch up on the reading of your text before we start part 2. It's definitely going to help you understand the lesson better. Till then, stay safe and stay well. Good day.